The Great Escape. The blaring sirens pierced the night as floodlights swept the prison grounds. Inside the penitentiary's thick walls, chaos reigned. Guards shouted and hurried, and dogs barked in fierce anticipation. Among the darkness, 3 figures ran, their breaths shallow and quick. Leo, the mastermind, was an older inmate with sharp ease and even sharper instincts. Marco, the muscler, moved with brute force, a human wrecking ball that had taken out 2 guards on their way out. Lastly, Cal, the youngest, was nimble and swift, skills he honed from years on the streets. They had been planning this for months. Leo had discovered a structural weakness in the walls, and Marco secured the tools. Cal's job was to map out the exit routes, learning the guards' patterns, a task he undertook with relentless precision. The escape was timed to the second. As they neared the outer fence, Marco took a bolt cutter from his bag, snapping the chains with a fierce determination. But the night wasn't on their side. The floodlights caught them just as they broke through. "Run!" Leo shouted. Cal sprinted ahead, his heart pounding loudly in his ears. Gunshots echoed, and Marco grunted as a bullet grazed him. Yet, driven by sheer will, they pushed on, diving into the dense forest beyond the prison's reach. Safe among the trees, the trio paused to catch their breaths. They had done the unthinkable, breaking out of the most secure penitentiary in the state, but freedom was just the first step. Survival was next. As dawn's first light began to break, they ventured deeper into the forest, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the dense forest thinned, an imposing silhouette emerged through the fog. Tall iron gates, twisted by time and rust, loomed before them. Beyond, the once grand mansion stood, hidden by years of neglect and overgrown ivy. Its windows, like hollow eyes, gazed blankly at the wilderness, while the grand double doors hung ajar, silently inviting or warning. Marco, always skeptical, scoffed. "Looks like a setting straight out of a horror story." Leo, squinting at the details, could see remnants of its former glory. Gargoyles crowned its parapets, while intricate woodwork hinted at the wealth and opulence it once housed. "It's perfect," he murmured. "No one would think to look for us here." Cal hesitated at the gate, sensing an unease. The air around felt heavy, as if the mansion held its breath, awaiting its next occupants or victims. But a glance back at the looming threat of capture propelled him forward. Inside, the mansion was a maze of shadows and whispers. Dust floated in the beams of light that managed to pierce the darkness. Grand chandeliers, now victims to decay, hung precariously. The walls, lined with portraits, told tales of generations long gone. Their eyes, however, seemed to follow the intruders with a mix of curiosity and disdain. The main hall bore a once ornate staircase, now rotting in places, leading to the mansion's mysterious upper levels. Old newspapers and trinkets lay scattered, hinting at lives abruptly abandoned. As night began its descent, the trio decided to take shelter. Little did they know that the mansion, in its silent decay, held secrets far beyond their wildest imaginations. The mansion's interior was a blend of grandeur and decay. As Leo, Marco, and Cal ventured deeper, they began unearthing fragments of the house's storied past. A grand library greeted them, its shelves weighed down by countless leather-bound tomes. Marco, rummaging through the papers on an antique desk, held up an old newspaper clipping. It reported the sudden and unexplained disappearance of the mansion's last known residents, a wealthy family named Hargrove. "Mystery deepens as Hargrove family remains missing," read the headline. Cal was drawn to a child's room. Left in a state of eerie preservation, the room contained dolls and toys neatly arranged in a circle, as if a game had been interrupted. The window, cracked and covered in grime, cast ghastly patterns on the worn-out rug. On a small nightstand, he found a tiny diary, its pages yellowed. Entries spoke of secret hideouts, imaginary friends, and an ominous shadow that visits at night. But the most chilling discovery awaited in the drawing room. Leo, inspecting the vast fireplace, found a journal half concealed behind a loose brick. Its writer, presumably the patriarch, detailed increasing paranoia, distrust among family members, and, most intriguingly, cryptic references to a hidden treasure within the mansion. As the evening wore on, the mansion seemed to grow more alive. Faint echoes and murmurs seeped through the walls, as if the house itself was recounting its tales. Marco, his eyes reflecting a new hunger, was fixated on the treasure. "Think about it," he mused. A fresh start. But as shadows stretched and night deepened, the mansion held its secrets close, daring the trio to unravel its mysteries, regardless of the cost. Nightfall blanketed the mansion, and with it, a tangible tension. The once muted whispers seemed to amplify, casting a spell of unease. As they tried to rest in one of the less deteriorated rooms, a cacophony of creaking doors and echoing footsteps danced on the edge of their hearing. Marco, gripped by an obsession, began tearing apart rooms in search of the hinted treasure. His once calculating demeanor had given way to frantic disarray, his eyes feverish. Every creak was a clue, every echo a call from the hidden riches. The house seemed to feed his fixation, drawing him into its eerie embrace. Leo, feeling the weight of their situation and the growing instability of Marco, decided to explore more, hoping to find an anchor in the madness. That's when he stumbled upon it, a locked room, its entrance concealed behind an ornate tapestry. Inside, chains hung from the walls, stained with age and darker memories. Dried, dark splotches adorned the floor, suggesting a violent past. Leo's heart raced, and a cold dread settled in his bones. Cal, on the other hand, began hearing clearer whispers, fragmented voices of laughter, anger, and sorrow. Venturing into the main hall, he saw shadows fleeting just at the edge of his vision, always just a step ahead, always just out of reach. Distrust and paranoia seeped into the trio's bond. Marco's erratic behavior clashed with Leo's discoveries, while Cal's growing unease isolated him further. The mansion, in its timeless decay, seemed to be pulling at the strings of their sanity, unraveling the trust that had once been their strength. As dawn seemed an eternity away, the house prepared to reveal its darkest secrets. As dawn's first light remained elusive, the mansion's ominous grip tightened. Each creak, echo, and shadow began taking a toll on the trio's unity. Cal's once nimble spirit was crushed under the weight of unseen watchers. He could swear he felt cold breath on his neck, fingers grazing his arms. His once resolute gaze now darted anxiously, seeing threats in every corner. Marco's treasure hunt reached fevered heights. Rooms lay in disarray as he ransacked them, his obsession clouding reason. Any mention of leaving was met with hostility. "We're so close," he'd mutter, his voice raspy with desperation. Leo, the group's anchor, found himself torn between reining in Marco's growing madness and soothing Cal's mounting fears. The discovery of the chain room gnawed at him, as he silently wondered about the mansion's sinister history. Who had been chained, why? But the trio's cohesion truly fractured when Leo and Cal stumbled upon the mansion's basement. Behind locked doors, they found evidence of recent habitation, canned food, worn clothes, and clippings of their own prison escape. Someone was, or had been, in the mansion with them. The realization sent shivers down their spines. Was it the last descendant of the Hargroves, driven mad by solitude, or someone far more sinister? Distrust bubbled. Every sound became a potential threat, every shadow a lurking danger. Cal began voicing his fears more urgently, convinced they were being watched. Marco's erratic behavior grew more unpredictable, making him both a victim and a threat. The once solid bond between the escapees now lay fragile and strained, with the mansion's eerie pulse driving wedges between them. Their sanctuary had become a prison, more haunting than the one they had fled. As hours dragged on, the mansion's oppressive weight bore down harder. Yet, amidst the phantom fears, a very real danger began to emerge. In the mansion's eastern wing, Cal, exploring a seemingly deserted corridor, came face to face with a ragged figure. Wild eyes, unkempt hair, and gaunt from years of seclusion, the man stood still, observing him. It was a brief moment. but the intensity was palpable. With a hiss, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of cold dread. Regrouping, Cal described the encounter to Leo and even a distracted Marco. They concluded it must be the reclusive descendant of the Hargroves. But why had he been hiding? And what did he want? It didn't take long to get an answer. Throughout the mansion, traps began to spring to life. Floors gave way, doors locked on their own, and swinging pendulums materialized in hallways. The man, having known the mansion's every secret, had turned it into a deadly maze. While evading a trap, Marco discovered a room filled with disturbing drawings and scribblings. They depicted the mansion, the chained room, and oddly, symbols that resembled their own escape plan. The walls bore a chilling message: "They want my treasure. They won't leave." Realization hit. The man's paranoia, amplified by his isolation, made him see the trio as threats. He believed they were after his ancestral treasure, a notion further fueled by Marco's destructive search. As the mansion's walls seemed to close in, the trio found themselves navigating a dual threat: the mansion's treacherous tricks and a reclusive man's unhinged determination to protect what he believed was his birthright. The battle for survival had begun in earnest. The mansion echoed with the sounds of pursuit, traps, and desperation, while the sinister mechanisms the reclusive Hargrove descendant had implemented kept the trio on edge. A plan began to form in Leo's mind. Utilizing Marco's strength and Cal's agility, they aimed to corner their pursuer. But first, they had to communicate their true intent. Leo, recalling the child's diary he'd found earlier, scribbled a quick note. "Not here for treasure. Just seeking refuge. Let's talk." With the note in hand, Cal maneuvered through the house, relying on his nimbleness to avoid the man's deadly traps. He finally reached the main hall, placing the note prominently on a tarnished silver platter. The tactic seemed to work. The relentless pursuit ebbed. Hours later, the trio found themselves face to face with the ragged figure in the mansion's grand dining room. Candlelight flickered, revealing a face etched with years of fear and mistrust. Words were exchanged cautiously. The man introduced himself as Edgar Hargrove, the last of his lineage. Tales of family feuds, betrayal, and a cursed treasure poured out. Over the years, Edgar had transformed from protector to prisoner, his sanity wavering. Leo, sensing an opportunity, appealed to Edgar's humanity. The common thread of seeking refuge, of wanting a safe haven, resonated. Slowly, as dawn began to peek through the broken windows, a truce was formed. Edgar, realizing his own descent into madness, felt a pang of guilt for the torment he had inflicted. In return for their silence about the mansion's location and its dark history, Edgar allowed the trio safe passage. As the three men emerged from the mansion's foreboding shadows, they left behind a prison of a different kind, and a man still chained by his own fears and past. Emerging from the mansion, the world outside seemed startlingly real and vibrant. The cacophony of forest life was a stark contrast to the oppressive silence they had left behind. As the trio trekked through the woods, the weight of their experiences bound them together in silent understanding. Reaching a nearby town, they lay low, using their remaining resources to forge new identities. The outside world had presumed them caught or dead, given the intensive manhunt that had taken place post their escape. Their disappearance into the mansion's enveloping shadows had been their inadvertent savior. Leo, driven by a newfound purpose, started working at a local workshop. The meticulous nature of craftsmanship became his solace, helping him heal and forget the harrowing events. Over time, he became a respected figure in the community, a symbol of redemption and transformation. Marco, the memories of the mansion and the treasure too potent, tried to distance himself from the past. He relocated to a distant city, trying his hand at various trades. While the shadow of obsession occasionally haunted him, the lessons from the mansion held him back from spiraling again. Cal, the youngest, chose education as his path to rehabilitation. The town's library became his haven. The more he read, the more he yearned to document the trio's experiences. Writing under a pseudonym, his accounts of the escape, the mansion, and Edgar became a best-selling novel, though many deemed it fictional. As for the mansion, it remained an enigma. Edgar, in his solitude, faded into obscurity. Over time, urban legends sprouted, with daring adventurers seeking it out. Yet, its exact location and the secrets it held remained elusive, hidden by the very shadows that had once ensnared the trio. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications. Write which story you liked the most in the comments.